Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to the dceu Daily. Remember, you can tag and follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Nearly forgot my own tag there. Wow. 3 days to go till the official release of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. It's absolutely nuts, isn't it? And I couldn't be more happier or more excited for all you lot who have already seen it. I hate you. Not really, I love you. But I hate you in a loving, kind of non-toxic way. Do we understand each other? Anyway, the irony isn't lost on me that a group of people that claimed the fans were a bunch of conspiracy theorist nut jobs, who said that a film didn't exist, actually yesterday came out and said that the film that they said didn't exist actually was a great movie. Wow. Obviously, the film isn't for them anyway, so up yours. But it's great that you enjoyed it because it's going to help us to restore the Snyderverse. So keeping on the subject of the time, which is Mr. Zack Snyder himself, and I was looking for this all over the place because I really wanted us to experience it and read it together because I haven't read this yet. And this is a New York Times interview with Zack Snyder. So let's give it a read because apparently he says some interesting things. Zack Snyder's rough and tumble ride with Justice League. The director digs into his exit from the original version of the epic and what led to his edit, the Snyder Cut, which HBO Max will release Thursday. Am I a provocateur? A little bit. Just a little bit, Zack. Just a little bit. You love it, don't you, Zack? You love it, admit it. You love all the hot takes and everyone being triggered by you. I can tell. Anyway, let's go. Snyder at his home in Los Angeles, he said of his exit from the original Justice League, the decision to leave was 100% mine. That's interesting to me. So basically, they didn't sack him. Look, right, yes, Zack, it was 100% yours, and I totally respect that, and your reasons that you've already given, and I'm sure you're going to give again in this interview. But Zack, they drove you out. They gave you no choice, and you know it, and I know it, and it's very sad, but at least we got justice for you. Anyway, this is by Dave Itzkoff. Even superhero movies can have dual identities. To most filmgoers, Justice League is just another misbegotten comic book adaptation that came and went in 2017. One in which DC heroes like Batman, Ben Affleck, Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot and Aquaman, Jason Momoa united to battle an intergalactic foe. But to Janier fans, Justice League is laden with notorious history. The director, Zack Snyder, exited the project during post-production, leaving it to be completed by Joss Whedon, the Avengers, who had come to help rewrite it. Help? More like hinder. The result was an unsatisfying attempt by Warner Brothers to kickstart its own Marvel-style franchise. Snyder occupies a singular space in the blockbuster business after breakthrough films like Dawn of the Dead 2004 and 300 2007. Cool, was it that long ago? He has been both praised and pillared for unapologetically bombastic superhero opuses like Watchmen 2009, Man of Steel 2013, and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. His big, brutal dust-up between those two characters, which grossed $873 million worldwide in 2016, yet still ended up critical and commercial disappointment. Can an $873 million be classed as a commercial disappointment? I mean, listen, the studio wanted to make more, so there's an avenue to say he's kind of right, but that's a hell of a lot of money and that could feed a hell of a lot of people, right? And in terms of movie, that's still a good take, right? But they wanted to make more, there's no question about that. The making of Justice League coincided with a tragic period in Snyder's life. His daughter Autumn died by suicide in March 7, 2017, and his family was mourning her while he tried to finish the film. It would be understandable if Snyder had chosen to disown and disregard Justice League entirely, but he did not. His fans and cast members promoted online petitions and a hashtag, "Release the Snyder Cut," encouraged him to put forward his own edit of the movie. Eventually, Snyder acknowledged that such a project existed not a finished version of the film, but a rough assembly, that Warner Brothers gave him a budget of about $70 million to complete. Well, John Stanky gave him $70 million. Warner Brothers had very little to do about it, apart from the fact that Stanky's company owns the fucking company. HBO Max, which like Warner Brothers is owned by Warner Media, will release this 4-hour film now called Zack Snyder's Justice League on Thursday. On a Sunday afternoon this month, Snyder dressed in a basic white t-shirt. I love that t-shirt, by the way. I want one, Zack. Can I have one? That exposed his heavily tattooed forearms. Was relaxing at his home in Los Angeles as he spoke in a video interview. In mid-conversation, his 10-year-old daughter, Sage, barnstormed through the room to fiddle with her father's iPad settings, and he playfully shooed her away. Bless. Snyder, 55, is both self-serious and self-aware, sometimes puffing up his own accomplishments and tearing them down in the same breath. Yes, that's called being humble, my friend. He knows that whether his Justice League cut is celebrated or panned, like the original, it helps burnish his professional standing either way. Rifling on the exuberant running time of the film, he said, facetiously, whatever that word is, even if I'm saying it right, it's like The Irishman, but with action. You could say that. That's a fine review. You could also say it's the Godfather of superhero movies. That's another fine review. God, I love you, Zack. More sincerely, he spoke of the strange satisfaction at getting to release the Snyder Cut and the toll it had taken on him. It's in some ways fun to surf the wave of cultural phenomenon, he said. In other ways, it's terrifying and horrible. He spoke further about the making of Zack Snyder's Justice League, the circumstances that led up to it, and whether audiences will want to see his grandiose take on these enduring characters. Here are some edited excerpts from the conversation. Was there a point, going back to Batman v Superman, when you realised you were on thin ice with Warner Brothers? There was definitely a shift in confidence that they had, and I think that kept multiplying. We went along, they had the giant IP intellectual property, and their confidence, in my point of view, had eroded. Was it a warning sign when the studio brought in Joss Whedon for rewrites? It was a bit of a red flag. They were like, we think punching up the humour and doing some more fun stuff will be great. I was like, I'm happy to shoot a scene if you guys have a good idea. We kicked around a bunch of different writers, and they had come in with Joss. He's a talented writer, no two ways about it. But I really didn't see the point. And then when I was like, I'm done, I can't do this, I feel like they were volunteering Joss as the de facto finisher, so Zack knew exactly what was going on. It's pretty obvious, right? You left Justice League of your own volition. Right. Absolutely. The decision to leave was 100% mine. I knew the fight that I was in for with them, and my family needed me, and I needed them. I was in a struggle at home, and then to go to my place of work and be in a second struggle there seemed like an outrageous thing to do. To myself and my loved ones. Basically, if they didn't make his life a fucking living hell and just let him do what he wanted to do or make his movie right, he would never have left. That's a fact. Did you worry about the long-term ramifications your departure might have for your standing with Warner Brothers or your career? For sure. And the truth is, I was in such a place of desperation, I didn't care. You know what? Good riddance to Justice League. I was like, guys, really? You're going to give me a hard time? Let's go. I'll fight you right now, laughs. I was not in the mood for that kind of thing. I felt like we had done a great job and the movie was done. Even the 2 hour and 20 minutes version that the studio had knocked me down to. How did you end up with a director's cut of the film? Almost every movie I ever made has a director's cut. When I said, okay, I'm done, I told one of the editors I worked with, Carlos Castillion, put it together as best as you can and give it to me. A bunch of my inner circle buddies who worked on the movie always talked about, maybe we just drop a thumb, drive somewhere and let a fan, he makes air quotes. And it was like, that's funny, but I think it's better if it just lives as this thing that no one will ever see. I've lost my appetite for the fight. So the Zack Snyder story in terms of Justice League and Man of Steel and BVS is a Rocky story. So this is this man who's introduced, who is approached by Christopher Nolan, one of the finest filmmakers and artists of all time. So basically what you see is, like, you know, in the first Rocky film, right, when Apollo gives Rocky an opportunity. And then basically Apollo gets surprised when Rocky's actually a good fighter and literally beats him on points, but it's not officially on points, right? It's the same situation here. The Zack Snyder story is a Rocky story. Kind of starts on a high, then he's knocked, and then he's not up for the fight, but then he comes back fighting. Amazing. So where are we? Because it's kind of jumped here. Right, where are we? So, yeah, that's where we were. So let's go back here. Were you dropping hints to its existence in the hopes that it would eventually be released? It was more just me having fun on the social network Vero with my fans. Did I think there would ever be a version of this where the fans' rallying cry got so loud that a big company like Warner Media would consider this was an option? Absolutely not. I thought maybe in 10 years there might be a DVD version where they might go, hey, maybe it's worth a couple of dollars if we spruce up the Snyder Cut. And now the same media company you clashed with on Justice League under different management is letting you put out your version of it. I appreciate that. I really do. This movie wouldn't exist if it wasn't for HBO Max. Zack making sure he doesn't thank Warner Brothers or Warner Media as such, but HBO Max. That's interesting. I'm eternally grateful for them, and the viewing experience is still at a hugely high quality. It's really up to your TV. It's in the same aspect ratio as First Cow. Those two movies share some common DNA. I think laughs. I really did like First Cow. I've never heard or seen of Third Cow, so I can't share in the joke, unfortunately, Zack. Actually, I would love that in a double feature. First Cow and the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Do you see the DC heroes on a grand level like characters from Wagner or Lord of the Rings? It's obvious I take these characters and their mythology really seriously. I want them to be fully realised as characters existing in that world. I don't think that it's cool to have fun at their expense. Wow. Wow, now that's massive. He doesn't want to have fun at their expense. He doesn't want to create a commercially gratifying experience you only watch once at these iconic, legacy characters. And that's beautiful. And this is why we love this artist. It's cool to have, I don't think it's cool to have fun at their expense. And there was a vision that we had, a complete universe, fully fleshed out, that we really wanted to take all the way. Was that to draw an intentional contrast with Marvel? Let's start again. Was that to draw an intentional contrast with what Marvel is doing in its movies? I knew it before, BVS, when I was doing BVS. When we made Man of Steel, Marvel is doing something else. They're doing it at the highest level, this popular action comedy with a heart, and they have that nailed. An effort to duplicate that is insanity because they're so good at it. What DC had was mythology at an epic level, and we were going to take them on this amazing journey. Frankly, I was the only one saying that, and that doesn't surprise me. But when you think about it, anyone listening to this paragraph or reading this paragraph will see it's obvious what you do with DC characters, isn't it? You can't do what the MCU did. If you did it before the MCU did, you could do it, but you're always going to be compared. But it's not just about being different for different's sake. This is the right way to go. Anyway, the release of your Justice League brings back some painful memories, but aren't you savouring it a bit too? Only in the sense that it's 3 years later, and here I am releasing a 4-hour version of the movie. It really shows that the consumer is not wrong in a lot of ways. Wow. They can't handle anything over 2 hours. They're going to lose their minds. They were underestimated. The audience themselves. Wow. Listen to this. So he's pretty much impersonating what the suit said to him. They can't handle anything over 2 hours. They're going to lose their minds. They were underestimated. The audience themselves. Wow. And this says something about modern day Hollywood, how we're not listened to. But now we're being listened to. How long did you want the theatrical cut of Justice League to be? My point of view is that the movie should be about 20 minutes longer each time. BVS should be 20 minutes longer than Man of Steel, and Justice League should be about 20 minutes longer than BVS. I thought the movie should be a little closer to 3 hours when I initially went into it. I know that it's indulgent. The truth is, there's probably about 10 Snyder cuts. There's a longer version than the 4-hour version. There's a 3-hour version, a 2-hour, and a 2 hour and 20. I think I showed the studio 2 hours and 40 minutes, and then I showed them a subsequent cuts of 2 hours and 30 minutes, and 2 hours and 28 minutes, and 2 hours and 22 minutes. How did you end up with enough footage for a 4-hour movie? I do it on every movie. I tend to shoot a lot, but it's really carefully done. It's not like we're just running a second camera. Everything is very methodically thought out. When I sit down to draw the movie is different than the movie the studio wants or that anybody knows about. Yeah, this is the thing with Zack. He draws. He believes in what he draws. That's his vision. He's always said his drawings, his imagery are more important than the words in the script. This is the way he works. So what he does is he draws the movie he wants. He makes sure he shoots the movie he wants. So with Zack Snyder's Justice League, the footage was there because he purposely knew what they were trying to do with him and his vision. So he would have the extra footage. I think when they were trying to drive him out, he knew what he was going to do. He knew he was going to fight for his cut eventually. He won't say that publicly, but that's what I believe. Why did you bring back some of your actors to shoot a new finale? I added it because this was going to be the last movie I made for the DCEU. And to have this entire cinematic universe without Batman and Joker meeting up just felt weird. Jared Leto and I had a bunch of conversations about it. I had mentioned it to Ben. I was like, Ben, let's just do it at my house. I could shoot it in my backyard. Don't tell the studio, and I'm not going to pay you guys. I'm just going to shoot it myself. Is that what you ended up doing? No. What happened is it worked out and we were able to do it for real. And then I called the rest of those cast members and said, hey, would you guys be down to come around and do it? The actor Ray Fisher raised complaints alleging that Whedon was abusive to him on the Justice League reshoots, which led to an investigation by Warner Media and the other actors coming forward with accounts of similar experiences with Whedon. Were you aware this was happening? Not at the time. The last thing they wanted to do was call me complaining about them having a hard time shooting. But in retrospect, do I feel bad that they had to go through that? I do. These guys are my friends. They're amazing actors. They're strong people. I want them to be taken care of and in a healthy situation. I wasn't there, so your opinion on it is probably as good as mine. This is the first time that Zack Snyder has, in an interview, allowed this question to be asked. And that's amazing. And he reacts in a brilliant way. He doesn't go at Whedon. He doesn't go at Johns. We already know there's a subtext at the end credits thanking Jeff Johns. That's who Zack Snyder is. He's a fucking gentleman. And from a certain point of view as a comic book fan, he respects Jeff Johns and for his artistry and his storytelling. So just an amazing man. And what a great way to react to what happened on the Justice League reshoot. Why did you end the movie with essentially a cliffhanger teasing another movie that's never going to come? The ask was my version of the movie. He knows exactly what he's doing. Wow, we're getting a cliffhanger. Had you gotten to make further Justice League movies, what would have happened in them? It's the fall of Earth when Superman succumbs to the anti-life and then sending Flash back in time to change one element so that doesn't happen. And then the big battle where we beat him when the villain Darkseid comes to Earth in the movie that you'll never see. The armies of Earth all unite again as they did before. This time there would be aircraft carriers and special forces guys. All the armies of the world would come together. Fuck me, Zack, you've got to do this. Jesus Christ. As well as Aquaman's fellow Atlanteans rising out of the ocean and the Themyscirians, Wonder Woman's compatriots, coming off their island. That was our big finale, but it's a long drum roll and guitar solo to get there. I'm so upset. I'm genuinely upset. Those women who have been on that island all those years, all those centuries, right, or for however long, decide to join man. Do you know how massive that is for man and woman to unite? Well, man has been the enemy where they've been, they just don't want anything to do with man because man has abused them so much. And just to think all these people, all these humans and Atlanteans, everyone was going to unite. This is fucking sensational. And you're fucking telling me I can't see this in 2 or 3 years' time? No. Everyone keep on fighting to restore the Snyderverse because this, my friends, is not right. Did you hear what the man just said? Everyone, humans, Atlanteans, Themyscirians, everyone is going to rise together. Unity, something our world needs a good fucking example of right now. It's all men, it's not all men. Women are bad, men are bad, this one's bad, that one's bad. In this story, everyone ultimately unites. What a great message for the world today. We must fight for this, like we did for the Snyder Cut. We must be ruthless and relentless, and we must never stop. Because Zack Snyder is cinema, and I want to see him making DC films. In all honesty, I don't really care about Army of the Dead. I'm going to be honest with you. I want to support it. I will support it. But I'm a DC man. I don't care about his other projects. I'm sorry, Zack. I'll support you. Of course I will. But it's all about DC for me. And we must get this. By the way, I will watch Army of the Dead. Don't lose your shit. But at the end of the day, DC is where Zack is at. And we want him to remain there. Anyway. Since Justice League, there have been other DC movies like Aquaman and Shazam that have gotten more enthusiastic reviews and made more money. Does that sting for you that your films didn't achieve that? I couldn't be happier. It doesn't sting for me at all. Those movies are cool and they're really well made and excellent. But BVS, love it or hate it, it's probably the most mentioned movie in hashtags and references. It's the closest thing to a cult film that could exist at this level of pop culture. Am I a provocateur? A little bit. Yeah, just a little bit, eh, Zack? Wow. Is my job to make some pop culture piece of candy that you eat and forget about the next day? Nah. 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 The guy says, nah, mate. The guy actually says, fuck you. I'm not making the shit the rest of you, MCU and other filmmakers are making. I'm not going to make fucking Sonic the fucking Hedgehog. As great as I like that movie and it's a bit of fun, have I gone to see it back since? No. How many MCU movies have I rewatched lately? No. Will I go back and rewatch WandaVision? No. How many times do I rewatch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, talk about it, and watch the trailers I've got downloaded on my PS3, right? Because Zack Snyder says something so polarizing that it doesn't matter if you love him or hate him, you're always going to talk about him and his movies. Amazing. And he can see that. And now he's blatantly saying the obvious. And he's saying to Warner Media and Stanky and everybody else, they will talk about my movies. They will be hashtagging, even to belt me over the head. This is good for you. This is what he's saying. I would rather expletive you up in a movie. Let's just say he says, I would rather fuck you up in a movie than make it nice and pretty for everybody. Oh, I love this guy. He doesn't even care anymore, does he? Let's be frank. There's no cult of Aquaman. Oh my God. He's just throwing the bombs now, isn't he? Jason is a force of nature. And by all means, I want there to be 100 Aquaman movies because he's an awesome guy. But it's not controversial. And I have purposely, because I love it, made those movies difficult. Wow. Yeah. Zack always goes against the grain. But he does it with such art. And he has got something contemporary to say. But brilliant. And basically this interview may trigger people. But fuck you. We love him. Is it possible that the zeitgeist just didn't embrace your interpretation of these characters? It could be, and that's fine too. I don't have a dog in the hunt. When I made Watchmen, it's deconstructionist. It's a movie that pokes holes in your heroes. And BVS is the same thing. It's meant to say, oh, Batman's drunk and taking painkillers, and he's sleeping with some anonymous girl. He's a broken person. He dresses up as a bat and he goes out at night and he beats people up. He has issues. I don't think the movie came along at a point where everyone was like, oh, we don't want the Batman. We don't want the Batman. We want Batman to be the warrior monk who's cool. And I personally am fine with that. When you see what Marvel is doing in its movies, do you ever think I should be doing more of that? No, not at all. Oh my God. It's like asking you what 2 and 2 is, isn't it? I don't know how to hit a ball any different than I hit it. A director has one skill, your point of view. That's all you have. If you're trying to imitate another way of making a movie, then you're on a slippery slope. Spot on, Zack. Brilliant. I'm glad I found this interview. I really wanted, because I've been reading excerpts all over the place, but I didn't want to get kind of an edited one on Screen Rant. I wanted to read this all because it's so interesting. Even though the DC movies have retained your principal cast members like Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, they're moving away from storylines that your films set up and the sense of a shared universe they establish. Do you feel like they're dismantling your legacy? They are 100% moving away. They consider the theatrical cut of Justice League as canon. That's their decision. I wish them all the best. I hope the whole thing is a giant blockbuster on top of blockbuster on top of blockbuster. The stars of those movies are my friends, and I want them to be prosperous, and I want people to love it. Brilliant. He's just such a positive guy. Imagine how much that must hurt him that they're moving away from his vision, and they shouldn't be. You've been making comic book adaptations for some 15 years. Are you done with that genre entirely? Do you feel you need to get away from it for a while? I don't think about it in those terms. It was nice to go do Army of the Dead, a coming zombie action movie for Netflix. They were completely supportive, and it was an incredible cathartic re-immersion into that relationship. I'm trying to put together this movie called Horse Latitudes, a super micro-budget movie that I'm going to go shoot with my buddies in South America. It's about a man's journey into his past and how does death shape you. And I'm ready to make a movie like that. I think so. Let's say that again. Am I ready to make a movie like that? Question mark. I think so. Are you still planning an adaptation of Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead? Fountainhead right now is on the back burner, and I don't know how that movie gets made, at least not right away. We need a less divided country and a little more liberal government to make that movie so people don't react to it in a certain way. Wow, because I don't know what Fountainhead's about. People have been talking about Fountainhead for a while, so that's interesting. So he says, at least not right away. We need a less divided country and a little more liberal government. A little more liberal government. So he's being really... So Zack Snyder is a liberal. I didn't even know what his politics were. I know he kind of told everyone he was voting Biden, but basically most people voted Biden. Even a lot of Republicans voted Biden, didn't they? So that's interesting. I don't really care about his political opinion. All I care about in terms of Zack is his artistry, his director's kind of skills and stuff like that. Meaning, if it had come out in the last few years, it would have struck the wrong tone. I think so, but we'll see. I'm in no rush. Do you think your Justice League has broader implications for the film industry and the lengths that studios will continue to go to cater to audiences? This is a social experiment for millions of people. It's, oh, look, a giant superhero movie. I guess that's cool. But then for a large portion of my fans, it comes custom made. As a viewer, you have the perception more than ever that the movie was made singularly for you as you watch it. It's the culmination of this entire experience. I fought and used the hashtag release the Snyder Cut. It's in my world, in my computer, on my TV, in my house. I don't think anybody can quantify what that means yet. Absolutely spot on. It is massive. This is a change. What will you do when it's finally released? I have to go to the dentist. This guy just kills it, mate. Listen to this. Listen to what he says. I have to go to the dentist on the 18th. That's how my day's going to be. Wow, what a brilliant fucking interview. It really was. I truly enjoyed that. You see the sense of humour. He sees the funny side of everything he's been through. Of course, not the loss of Alton. That's devastating. Something a parent will never get over. But, you know, what they put him through. Snyder knows what I know and what most of you are starting to realise what's going on. It's not just the embracing of the fans and what we saw from the Access Media critic reactions with kind of gritted teeth. It was really good. I still don't like Snyder and what he does, but it was really good. That's amazing. That's all you want to see. There's still people talking shit like Daniel RPK, but Daniel RPK is a very kind of small kind of I suppose, what scooper, isn't he, really? And he's known by all these big press people, and obviously the industry knows him, but I wouldn't put much credence, because once someone says CGI by Zack Snyder is bad, then you know there's something extremely wrong there, and that's up to him. And there's an agenda there. He went very authoritarian about movie theatres and WB doing the wrong thing by breaking the release window. So he's one of them. He's an authoritarian, and I'm not interested in him at all. But Zack Snyder knows exactly what we know, that the wind has changed. It's blowing in a different direction. It ain't 2016 anymore, baby. It's 2021. And in 2020... a company greenlit this movie that would never have been greenlit if AT&T didn't buy the company, which was Time Warner. What does this mean? What's going to change? we're going to get Justice League 2. We're going to get Justice League 3. We're going to get so much of the Snyderverse. And he is going to hit so big that he's going to be the fucking director that people want to go to when they want a unique take on something. People will come to him. So if Disney comes to him and says, Zack, we want you to do Star Wars, we want A, B, and C, D, he's going to say, nah, fuck off. If they say, Zack, we want you to do whatever you want with a Star Wars film, and we'll put something in your contract that you can just walk away if we mess with you, right? And he says, yeah, this is the kind of situation we're getting into. It's all about Zack Snyder. Everyone is talking about Zack Snyder. Everyone is talking about this 4-hour superhero movie, a 4-hour Justice League movie. If you're a geek on nerd, whether you're on the Marvel side or the DC side or Star Wars or Star Trek, you don't care. You want to see this movie. It's how can I say? It's a cultural breaking point, if you like, for the industry. The industry has, when I was growing up, the industry really didn't listen to people. The industry just did what they wanted. Now, the difference is when, like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, even early noughties, the industry got it more right than wrong. The industry now are getting it more wrong than right because of their arrogance. They want to be political. They're obsessed with representation over storytelling. You should be doing both, by the way. Representation is important. It should be validated. But you can't validate inclusion and representation when your main award ceremony is saying award diverse people or else. No. You should have enough diverse people in the industry, and if they're good enough, they should win it. There shouldn't be a rule in the awards saying. So basically, they've got all their values and ideas the wrong way around, and we all know that. But what I'm attempting to say here is that the reactions say everything. This is going to hit big. You know, how many films do you know that's made a studio money before it's been released? That's what Zack Snyder's Justice League did as soon as they greenlit it and announced it. It brought subscribers to HBO Max, right? It brought excitement to the industry. It gets people talking on social media. I think we've already discussed that negative or positive discussions are irrelevant. They both matter, and they both bring money to the bank because everyone is going to watch the living shit out of a 4-hour Justice League movie. Whether they trash it or they love it, it's kind of irrelevant now. We've seen what Access Media have to say, and as I say, with gritted teeth, they have said, yeah, I like this. It's pretty awesome. So, look, as I say, I believe we will restore the Snyderverse. I am confident about that. But as I keep on saying, don't be complacent. But wow, Zack was amazing in that interview. He's done Vanity Fair. He's doing New York Times. It's just amazing. Everybody wants to talk to Zack Snyder. Away from Zack Snyder and Justice League and the Snyder Cut for a minute, let's talk about the Batman. Why the Batman can't ignore the Dark Knight's Bat family. By the way, I don't think that Matt Reeves is ignoring them. I think they will be very much involved in this movie. We just don't know about it yet. I think he's going full comic book with this, and I think you're going to be, if you love Batman and the Bat family, I think he's going to introduce them. Robert Pattinson's The Batman will be the latest incarnation of the Caped Crusader on the big screen, and the reboot needs to include the Bat family by Andy, whose surname I can't pronounce. The Batman reboot needs to become the first live-action Batman franchise to properly bring in the Bat family. Robert Pattinson will be the next actor to bring the Dark Knight to life on the big screen. While the Batman was originally intended to be Ben Affleck's film, focusing on his Bruce Wayne, in the DCEU, it was retooled into a reboot with director Matt Reeves at the helm. The latest reimagination will follow Bruce Wayne in his early days as Gotham City's infamous crime fighter. The film will centre on Batman trying to stop the serial killer supervillain known as the Riddler, with Paul Dano's version looking to be the darkest take on the iconic villain thus far. This is interesting with the Riddler because I think he's kind of, I don't know how to put him, but the Riddler in this film, and it just seems from the promo that we saw at DC Fandom, that this guy is trying to make a point about how the world is run, how society is run, and the hypocrisy of wealthy people, and how really they are the corrupt ones. Given that it won't be set in the DCEU, Reeves has the opportunity to shape his own take on the Bat mythology in what's meant to be a trilogy. One of the driving elements that he's bringing to the Batman is that it will be a noir-driven story that essentially puts Bruce's detective skills in the spotlight with a new continuity. With the new franchise, we'll have a clean slate, especially by depicting Batman in his early days. But one of Batman's biggest aspects that have yet to be told on the screen is the concept of the Bat family. For decades upon decades, Batman's extended family has been incredibly crucial to Bruce's journey, whether it's in the comics, TV shows, or even video games. From the many Robins that have come and gone to the Batgirl, Spoiler, Oracle, Orphan, and more. The Bat family provides amazing characters that not only stand with Bruce, but also live as their own unique heroes. The Batman will undoubtedly add something new to the Dark Knight's legacy in media, but the Bat family should be part of that, I agree. When it comes to the Bat family, past Batman franchises have either not given them their due or horribly represented them. Tim Burton's Batman films never got the chance to have Dick Grayson, but they intended to bring Robin in. Originally, Batman Returns would have featured the first Boy Wonder after Burton had cast Marlon Wayans as Grayson, but the character got cut from the final script, and Burton had instead planned to introduce Wayans' Robin in Batman Forever. However, once Burton had left the third project, as had Michael Keaton, Joel Schumacher cast Chris O'Donnell as Robin instead. This depiction of Dick was one of the sequel's struggling parts, and given how more comedic Schumacher's Batman films became, it never allowed those movies to seriously explore the creation of the Bat family. I thought Chris O'Donnell was a great Robin, and I think in places he was done really well, so I don't think it's as bad as Andy's saying. Batman and Robin didn't make any better with Alicia Silverstone's Barbara Pennyworth, I agree, giving Batgirl a strange portrayal as well. Robin's angst conflict with Batman also didn't do them any favours, and that became the last time Bruce had any sidekicks on film. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy never once explored the idea of Bruce taking people under his wing. The Dark Knight Rises did, however, introduce Joseph Gordon-Levitt's John Blake character, who similarly was based on 3 different versions of Robin, but the trilogy's final story didn't give the proper development that was needed in order to buy the idea of Bruce choosing Blake to become the new protector of Gotham City. While previous Batman films have struggled with the idea of those characters, DC TV has actually been giving them a platform for the last few years. On Titans, Brenton Thwaites' Dick Grayson was finally given an opportunity to be portrayed in a more serious manner. The first 2 seasons followed him struggling with getting out of Batman's shadows, while also seeing him trying to break away from becoming exactly like the Dark Knight as Dick became Nightwing. Titans have also brought in Jason Todd as the second Robin, exploring how he dealt with his own identity issues. The 3rd season is also set to introduce Tim Drake, as well as Barbara Gordon, who is the GCPD commissioner, while seeing Jason take on the Red Hood identity. Titans might not always be the cream of the DC franchise crop, but the show is giving the Bat characters an opportunity to be explored and depicted in a more modern and compelling way. While the Arrowverse has restrictions around using Batman, it has allowed a show like Batwoman to become a thing. Even though Ruby Rose's time was short in the Arrowverse, the character of Kate Kane still proves that there are other interesting players in Batman's mythology. Kate Kane is an interesting character. She wasn't an interesting character in the Batwoman TV show. What would it be like if Bruce had a family member that was his own flesh and blood fighting crime in Gotham City as a Cape vigilante? Even the Arrowverse exclusive Ryan Wilder is giving the Bat legacy a new perspective, if you say so. Having taken over the Batwoman mantle, Titans and Batwoman demonstrate that the Bat family characters enchant the overall world of Gotham when they're given the chance to be spotlighted. It's unrealistic to expect Reeves to bring in every Robin, Batgirl and external Bat family member in the same Batman trilogy. However, it's not too much of an unreasonable demand to see them begin to be introduced. I'll talk about this after the article. Seeing that Bruce will definitely need at least one partner by his side in this initial film series, when Bruce takes people to join his crusade, it reflects his desire to find souls who have gone through similar traumas like him. Almost any iteration of Bruce knows what Gotham City's corruption can do to people and how difficult it can be to escape that darkness once they're trapped. But it's not just Batman who is giving people like Dick, Jason, Tim, Barbara and more a chance to fight for their city. They give Bruce something too. While they're all different characters, the Bat family stops Batman from fully getting swallowed by his own darkness. As much as Batman stands for good, there's no debate that he's one of the most damaged heroes in the DC universe. There are incarnations of Bruce where he's so stuck in his own Batman mentality that he's almost entirely disconnected from his humanity. In other words, Batman versus Superman. That's what happens, isn't it? All these people that he has surrounded himself with ground him to some extent. If Alfred Pennyworth and none of that family members existed in his life, Bruce's darkness would not only consume him, but it would make the Dark Knight a less interesting character. Since the Batman seems explicitly grafted to show Gotham at its darkest, it's vital to have the likes of Robin supporting the Dark Knight, as this allows him to tie to his own humanity that would otherwise not be afforded the character. The idea of Bruce having at least one Robin by his side in the Batman trilogy shouldn't be difficult to make if they want to bring something new to the other Batman franchises haven't done. The extended family is one of the best ways to do it. The Batman will already be tackling other aspects of the character that haven't been on screen before, and introducing these characters would only help the new reboot stand out. Right, here's my opinion. Basically, Andy said it himself. He can't bring every version of Robin and Batgirl. In a TV show, it's easy. You've got 10 to 20 episodes, depending what show you are. It gives you a chance to kind of expand different episodes, so you're just not focusing on one character, and it doesn't all become tired. Really difficult to do in a movie, and then people accuse you of being overstuffed, as they did Batman Returns, as they did Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So you've got to be careful. Now, one of these things where Andy says he needs these characters to ground him. This is the kind of conversation us in the Doctor Who fandom have. The Doctor needs a companion. The companion's important. The companion grounds him. But let me tell you something. As good as the companion concept is, it can always be misused. And all you need is one annoying companion to water down the character, to water down the Doctor. And when it becomes a companion show rather than a show about the Doctor, it becomes watered down. And we've seen this so many times. We saw it with Clara, and we've seen it with many more. I'm important. I'm the companion. Keep on giving me stuff to say, so I feel important. And basically, the Doctor could literally arrive in different times, different worlds, make friends, share his adventure, leave them behind, and go on to another one, right? So he's still got people to ground him, and it's the same with Batman. I believe Matt Reeves is planning to have some kind of extended Bat family, and I think this is why his relationship with Catwoman, Selina Kyle, in the Batman will be different. She will be more of a kind of clouded figure rather than the evil Catwoman we've seen in the 1960s show, what we saw in Batman Returns. But even Batman Returns kind of had a little hint at a romance with Selina and Bruce, right? So I think there's going to be this whole proper romance kind of thing between Selina and Bruce, but she will become a kind of integral member of the Bat family. And I think they will introduce a Robin, and I think they may introduce a Batgirl. What they could do is introduce these characters via an HBO Max TV show. Different TV shows for Robin, Batgirl. Well, not Batgirl because they're doing a movie, so they don't need to do that. They're already doing Batgirl, aren't they? And different other characters from the Bat family, which would be awesome. But no one can seriously tell me that either of the iterations or interpretations of Batwoman are good enough to prove that you need her in a movie. You know, Batwoman in the comics is great, but she hasn't been adapted properly. But I would like to see the Bat family extended in Matt Reeves' The Batman trilogy, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So let's go back to Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Of course, you saw me react briefly yesterday as I reacted to the critic reactions of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut to this final Justice League Snyder Cut trailer. And it did tease the Martian Manhunter, kind of. We saw Martha Kent, a.k.a. Diane Lane, have those beamy red eyes. So Sarah Moran from Screen Rant is talking about it a bit more in detail. So let's have a look about what she has to say. The final trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League has arrived, and it teases the first real look at Martian Manhunter with a shot of glowing red eyes. The final trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League has arrived, and it teases the first real look at Martian Manhunter following a difficult and prolonged journey. Zack Snyder's true vision for Justice League is finally getting released on HBO Max. This version of the movie will be different from the 2017 theatrical versions in several ways. Including whole new scenes and additional characters that push the movie to a 4-hour runtime. Among the characters receiving additional screen time is Harry Lennox's General Swanwick, aka Martian Manhunter. Though Lennox's Swanwick has been a part of the DCEU since Man of Steel, the character's trajectory within the universe was never fully realised in the theatrically released Justice League. In Snyder's original plan for the movie, it would be revealed that Swanwick has been the alien and an eventual Justice League member, Martian Manhunter, even using his abilities to take the form of Martha Kent. At one point in the movie, however, for the Snyder Cut, the Martian Manhunter reveal has been added back in. And in this final trailer, there's a shot teasing the alien's transformation. With the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League only days away, HBO Max has debuted the movie's final trailer. It includes several moments of new footage, including more shots of Darkseid's invasion of Earth and the Green Lanterns on the scene to defend it. Perhaps the biggest tease, however, is a quick glimpse of Martha Kent with her eyes glowing red, a hint that she's actually Martian Manhunter in disguise. Check out the final trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League below. Do you know what would have been kind of weird and interesting if Martian Manhunter had been disguised as Martha Kent all along? I mean, what a fucking twist that would have been. While only a handful have had the opportunity to see the completed Snyder Cut of Justice League, a handful? I think I'm the only one who hasn't seen it. Much of what happens in this version of the movie has already been known. Snyder himself shared the storyboards of the scene he originally envisioned. As the reveal of Martian Manhunter in it, Martha Kent is visiting with Lois Lane, and after saying goodbye, Martha's eyes briefly glow red before she transforms into Martian Manhunter, and then General Swanwick, confirming the alien's presence in the DCEU, as well as hinting he's been masquerading as Swanwick for some time. The scene was never even completed for the 2017 theatrical release of Justice League and was instead replaced with an entirely different scene between Martha and Lois, a fucking horrible scene at the Daily Planet. Now, though, Snyder's original scene, as well as his intention to reveal Martian Manhunter, has been restored. For fans of the character who have always hoped to see Jon Jones in live action, the moment is sure to be a treat, though it's unlikely to lead to any more appearances, at least not for this version, with the DCEU moving in a new direction. The events of Zack Snyder's Justice League aren't considered official canon for WB's upcoming slate of DC movies. Still, this tease could work as proof of concept, possibly convincing those in charge of the DCEU that Martian Manhunter deserves another shot. Very interesting. What's interesting to me is that the more people react to Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut and say how great it is, the more in an uncomfortable position Warner Brothers Pictures and Warner Media, Jason Kilar and Ann Sarnoff are becoming to be in. Because when an epic vision of a journey in a franchise is said to not have a future, and the studio is saying, well, actually, the crappy version of Justice League is canon, then you are in a really uncomfortable position. And what you do about that, because the more popular this guy Snyder becomes and his kind of Justice League trilogy becomes, and people saying we want more, and I'm talking about normies as well, you have a very uncomfortable position. You know, Martian Manhunter, Harry J. Lennox, Martian Manhunter, we're going to want to see more of him. So the more people scream we want more, the more in an uncomfortable position the studio is going to be in. Justice League. Ben Affleck and Jared Leto didn't film together as Batman and Joker. I didn't know this, but this makes sense with the COVID-19 pandemic. But when you see the trailer of them together, it looks like they're together, so it's amazing. Things like this I'd rather not know, but it doesn't matter. By Michelle Mehichans. Sorry, I just killed your name. Justice League stars Ben Affleck and Jared Leto were unable to film their scenes together as Batman and Joker due to the COVID restrictions. Deborah Snyder, producer of Zack Snyder's Justice League, recently revealed that stars Ben Affleck and Jared Leto did not film their scenes together as Batman and Joker. The upcoming film, which is the director's cut of 2017 Justice League, boasts a 4-hour runtime and reportedly offers greater insight into the core characters of the titular superhero group. Snyder's cut represents an artistic redo of the original Justice League, which was plagued by production issues and debuted to mixed reviews, ultimately failing to gross the expected returns at the box office. During initial production of Justice League in 2016, the script purportedly underwent multiple alterations following the shoot. Snyder eventually stepped from the project after a family tragedy. When Joss Whedon took over as his replacement, he overhauled much of the script and supervised reshoots that incorporated a lighter narrative tone, as well as cut down the lengthy runtime after Justice League premiered to negative press. Fans, cast and crew petitioned for the release of the version that more aligned with Snyder's original cinematic vision. In 2020, Warner Bros. Affirmed the decision and financed the recut of Zack Snyder's Justice League. While speaking with Cinema magazine, producer Deborah Snyder shared the difficulties in shooting a film amid COVID, noting that Affleck and Leto were unable to physically film their scene in the same location. In the interview, she explained the overall process of production. What was hard was we only shot for 3 days. We shot the Batman Joker scene and then we did a couple of pickups. But literally no one was together. It was hard from a scheduling point of view, and it was also hard to plan it because everyone is just starting to come back to shooting after COVID. But we were still figuring out what the restrictions were and how to do it safely. While challenging to film, Zack Snyder's Justice League remains highly anticipated by fans of the DCEU. Although the story follows the same basic outline as the prior cut, it also promises to weave in a deeper sense of world building and populating the DC universe with new characters and intricate backstories. In interviews, Snyder has maintained that his film does not use the continuity of Whedon's Justice League, but instead follows the modified timeline. During the press tour of Wonder Woman 1984, director Patty Jenkins said that she believes all DC directors have ignored Whedon's interpretation of the iconic Justice League, instead choosing to consider Snyder's story as canon. This is interesting because Zack says that the studio don't treat his film as canon, but they treat Justice League as canon. But then Patty Jenkins said all that time ago that the DCEU directors treat his film as canon. That's interesting. Considering the long, convoluted journey that Zack Snyder's Justice League has traversed, it will certainly be intriguing to witness how audiences respond to his carefully crafted magnum opus. For viewers disappointed by the hasty construction of 2017's Justice League, this updated rendering at least appears to harbour greater narrative foresight and respect for the beloved characters of the DCEU. As Snyder has noted, he hopes that his new film will soon erase Whedon's Frankenstein version. With any luck, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman and The Flash, Aquaman and Cyborg will finally get the chance to do their story justice. And we surely hope so. And from the reactions, it certainly seems like everyone's quite happy. One of the issues, or not an issue, but interesting what people have been echoing in their reactions and to me and saying, Mick, I can't believe how much humour's in this film. And of course, Chris Terrio did tell us back in 2016, as I said yesterday as I was reading out the reactions, that it was going to be a lighter movie. Not that that's better because it's a lighter movie. I didn't have an issue with what MOS and BVS was anyway. But it makes sense that a Justice League movie would have a few jokes and they would hit hard. And apparently Ezra Miller's is The Flash, again, is the humorous side. But this time he gets a great story arc and there's a great balance to the character, which is really exciting. Screen Rant's Michael Kennedy talks about how Zack Snyder's original DCEU plan made Lois Lane the most important character. Of course, this is true. Lois Lane's original DCEU arc made the character much more important to the overall story, but Zack Snyder's departure left it unfulfilled. Lois Lane's original DCEU arc made the character much more important to the overall story. But Zack Snyder's departure left it unfulfilled. One of the most discussed aspects coming out of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice in 2016 was the nightmare sequence, which saw Batman receive a time-travelling warning from the Flash about an apocalypse to come and the vision of what the future held. In the nightmare world, Superman had been corrupted into a villain, and Flash let Bruce Wayne know that Lois Lane was the key to preventing that result. And isn't it amazing? How did Joss Whedon deal with that? He basically brought her in as Superman was losing his temper, fighting the Justice League and just saying, "Hi Clark, it's me," and then Clark calming down. Ridiculous, right? Of course, fans have had to wait over 5 years to actually learn where that story was originally meant to go, as Joss Whedon's widely panned theatrical cut of Justice League completely glossed over that arc. It was one of many casualties of switch between original director Snyder and Warner Brothers' chosen replacement. And now embattled Whedon, it's but one of the reasons that fans were so desperate to finally see the Snyder cut of Justice League, an opportunity HBO Max will afford them on March the 18th. Sadly, Snyder has made it known that his Justice League will end on a cliffhanger in line with his original intention to make a Justice League 2 and 3 that would wrap up the story. In the meantime, though, here's how Snyder's original DCEU plan would have made Lois Lane into the franchise's most important character. Now, actually, I asked this question after the article. It's unclear if any elements of this planned subplot survive to be part of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Hang on, have I missed that out? So Justice League 2 and 3, that would... Yeah, so I've read that. Let's go back. Sorry. It's unclear if any elements of this planned subplot survive to be part of Zack Snyder's Justice League, as Snyder went through 3 different versions of the script before production, but his original plan was to have Bruce and Lois get romantic, or at the very least become closer, with Batman falling deeply in love with the intrepid reporter. That led to a dramatic conflict for the Caped Crusader, as Bruce comes to realise that he'll need to bring back Superman to save the world. But if he does, so Lois will be lost to him, whatever she might feel toward Bruce. Clark Kent will always be Lois' true love, and if he's alive again, he'll be who she wants to be with. So, it's controversial. There's no question about that. It's very controversial to do this, but then it just gives so much more dynamic to him bringing Superman back to life. I like it, and I'm very interested in it. According to Snyder, Warner Bros. Wasn't keen on this love triangle idea, so while it's not 100% clear when during the writing process it was removed, there's a good chance the Bruce-Lois romance won't be part of what ultimately seen on HBO Max. While this might seem like odd territory for Snyder to want to delve into, in Justice League, DC fans might recall that relationship between Bruce and Lois isn't an unprecedented event, either on the comic page or the animated DC universe. Exactly. One place such a pairing hasn't been seen before is a live-action movie, so Snyder was likely interested in doing something new with the characters. Where it would have been well received by fans is another matter entirely. In accordance with the Flash's warning to Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman, Lois Lane was indeed the key to why the nightmare future with an evil Superman happened. However, it wasn't anything she did, but rather something done to her. As revealed by Zack Snyder in 2019, Lois was slated to be killed by Darkseid, which would cause Superman to succumb to the anti-life equation and become the villain. The rub was that Lois would have been killed inside the Batcave, and Superman would then blame Batman for her death, explaining why Batman is public enemy number 1 in the Superman-dominated nightmare future. With the additional context provided by Snyder's later reveal that Bruce had fallen in love with Lois, another whole layer has been added to the Superman-Batman beef in the nightmare timeline. It also explains why Superman said she was my world and you took her from me to Batman. Superman could believe that to be true in 2 senses, her death and Batman's romance with Lois, which again Snyder hasn't really elaborated on as to how two-sided it really was. If Lois did have romantic feelings towards Bruce, even if she did still love Clark more, that's another reason for Superman to hate Batman's guts. As a handsome billionaire, Bruce Wayne probably has lots of romantic options, yet he chose the woman Clark loves. There's no way that doesn't cause a rift, even if she hadn't been killed by Darkseid. Even aside from her death causing Superman to turn evil, Lois Lane was already set up as an extremely important character to Snyder's original Superman and DCEU story arcs. In Man of Steel, she's able to figure out that Clark Kent is Superman before anyone else. In Batman v Superman, she's able to figure out Lex Luthor's plan to pit Batman and Superman against each other and is instrumental in them eventually ceasing their conflict and joining forces. She even directly prevents Batman from striking a possible fatal blow on Superman by explaining what's really going on. A bite after the film's infamous Martha moment occurs, a great moment by the way. While Lois' demise caused the nightmare future, even in death, she was meant to lead Batman to his final redemption. Batman, wrapped with guilt about Lois, but also full of love for her, would have ended Snyder's original Justice League trilogy by travelling through time and sacrificing himself to save Lois and stop Darkseid, preventing the nightmare timeline from coming to pass. In hindsight, this would have only furthered the often noticed parallels between the DCEU's Batman and the MCU's Iron Man. Either way, Lois would once again prove the deciding factor in the major DCEU event taking place. Again, though, it's worth noting that much of this plan was scrapped during further script revisions by Snyder and writer Chris Terrio due to Warner Brothers being called to the Batman and Superman Lois romantic triangle. whether or not it would have worked for fans is something we'll never get to know for sure. Right, first of all, this was a fucking amazing idea from Zack and Chris. Amazing. Let's look at this. This not only makes Lois really integral, and she was always integral in Zack's mind anyway, but what you do here is you make Batman's emotions and motivations even bigger. Right, Superman dies. Lois and Bruce have this romance. They're two people left alone in the world. Now, Bruce didn't know Superman and Clark that well. They weren't friends before, so we must remember that. But he feels guilty. He hated Superman. He nearly killed Superman. He feels responsible. He's got no powers. He couldn't save Superman. Bruce is devastated. He feels guilty. It's like when my mum died. And I remember every fucking bad thing I ever said to her when we used to argue. This happens in real life. So Bruce is devastated. Then him and Lois, two lonely, broken people, cling to each other and have a relationship. Now, I know the fuckbots out there would have hated it. The normies would have hated this idea. But I think it's a great idea. It just gives Batman better motivations. Now, are we sure that this romance isn't actually in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Are we sure about this? Now, apparently, he binned it at the script stage, but we don't know that. We know that Zack was shooting things at the same. He was shooting things from his own vision and Chris's own vision and what the studio wanted at the same time. Is it possible that this romance is actually kind of fleshed out a little bit in Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut? Don't spoil it for me. Don't tell me anything if you've seen it. Please don't spoil it. I know your excitement and I get it and I forgive you for spoiling certain things, but don't. But I think there's a chance that we may see that in this film. We'll have to wait and see. But there's another question I've got for you. Is it possible, and I want you to think about this, is it possible that the cliffhanger of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is Lois being killed by Darkseid? We'll have to wait and see. But I think that is very probable. And if this is the case, I just want to thank the people who have seen this film for not spoiling such a huge cliffhanger. Why the DCEU can do the Flash's road better than the Arrowverse, by Andy, whose surname I can't pronounce. The Arrowverse has introduced most of the Flash's rogues, but the DCEU will be the universe that can utilise the iconic group better than DC TV. DCEU's The Flash franchise can utilise the rogues better than the CW's The Flash did in the Arrowverse. One of the big discussions that has always followed the two respective iterations of the Scarlet Speedster is how Ezra Miller's film can be different from the way Grant Gustin brought Barry Allen, aka The Flash, to life in the Arrowverse. While they are in their own universes, it's understandable for comparisons to be made and for fans to inquire about how the cinematic take will do the Flash mythology differently. The Arrowverse drama is in its 7th season and is already renewed for an 8th one next year, but the Flash has already featured many of the infamous villains that together are known as the Rogues. The earliest season of The Flash introduced iconic members like Captain Cold, Heatwave, Weather Wizard, along with several more. What the TV show hasn't done is a proper team-up with all of them. Instead, there have been smaller encounters between 2 or 3 members. But never has the Arrowverse seen every rogue at once. That's one of the recurring elements in the Flash comics, and has been for decades. The TV series, however, has so far never had the opportunity to see the rogues as a unit. While some of the rogues haven't been part of the show for years, The Flash Season 6 and 7 have recently given the new Mirror Master a solid portrayal, with Eva McCulloch developed as a formidable foe. But even though the Flash series will have other stories and villains they can focus on, it's hard to picture the Rogues ever being a part of that, given how many villains are usually part of the lineup. It's a lot of actors that they'd have to get back. However, while the DCEU Flash already has its first film set, future installments should bring the Rogues together and include the layer that the Arrowverse couldn't achieve. Seeing Arrowverse villains like Captain Boomerang, Captain Cold, Heatwave, Mirror Master, the Trickster, and Weather Wizard all together would bring something new to the Flash movies and distinctive from the TV counterpart. It might also be easier getting 6 cast members attached to a film as opposed to trying to book several actors who aren't series regulars to be available at the same time to shoot an episode or two. An episode of The Flash usually takes about a week to film, and that could be a big cause of why the Rogues have never come together. Besides, hang on, are you saying they filmed? It doesn't take a week. Andy, it doesn't take a week to shoot an episode of a TV show. Are you nuts? That's impossible. Listen, who aren't series regular to be available at the same time to shoot an episode or two. An episode of The Flash usually takes about a week to film. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. There's no way. I know about filming schedules. There's no way. Film that could be a cause of why the Rogues have never come together. Besides a few scattered mini alliances, currently Rogues so far introduced on the show haven't been left in different situations. Some are dead while others haven't returned for seasons. One has even left his status as a villain, with Heatwave joining Legends of Tomorrow. With the chances being slim that the Flash ever brings the Rogues together, that's where the DCEU franchise can come in to tackle that aspect of the mythology that hasn't been fully explored on screen. Whatever happens after the Flash movie's Flashpoint adaptation, a sequel focusing on those villains would help the new iterations stand out. It will be a better option than to immediately focus on the Reverse Flash, who has been a big part of the Arrowverse show for years. As much exposure that the Arrowverse has been given the Rogues, the DCEU can give fully realised versions of them as a team in the Flash film franchise down the line. Yeah, I like this idea, Andy. I would like to see the Rogues Gallery or the Rogues team up and stuff. It's something, maybe, I think the Rogues could be cameoed in the Flashpoint movie and could be introduced, and maybe a little teaser of them teaming up in the next movie would be awesome. The Batman's Andy Serkis hints his Alfred could be an ex-SAS agent. Wow. The Batman's Alfred Pennyworth, Andy Serkis, strongly hints his iteration of the character will still be ex-SAS, much like the comics, by Rachel Abernathy. The Batman's Alfred Pennyworth, Andy Serkis, hints his iteration of the character will still be ex-SAS. Matt Reeves' The Batman is perhaps one of the most anticipated DC movies currently on the release calendar, and yet it's also one that has suffered more than a few setbacks. Production began about a year ago, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, it was suspended at various points throughout the year. The Batman just wrapped filming yesterday and is currently scheduled for March 2022. I don't see this film being released in March. It could. Look, I think this film could be delayed to summer of 2022, just because why would you release a Batman movie in March? I think this is a placeholder. I think either this is going to be put forward or put back. We'll have to wait and see. This is where it stands after being delayed twice from its original June the 2021 date. But, interestingly, could it be brought back to June 2021 or maybe July or August, right? They could break, Warner Media could break their, theatrical release window thing and HBO Max and say to Matt Reeves, you're not happy with that? We'll just release it in movie theatres. That's fine. Starring Robert Pattinson as the titular hero, the Batman promises to introduce a brand new iteration of the character and the people around him. In addition to starring various members of Bruce Wayne's Rogues Gallery, such as the Penguin, Colin Farrell and the Riddler, Paul Dano, the Batman will introduce a new version of his loyal butler, caretaker Alfred. The Lord of the Rings and Planet of the Apes star Serkis will step into the iconic role this time around, and it sounds like he'll have some hidden depths. While speaking to Comic Book Movie about his new film SAS Red Notice, Serkis was asked if his character George Clements in the movie has any common ground with his Alfred. Unsurprisingly, Serkis couldn't outright confirm such a thing, but his answer certainly feels telling. I mean, if I get into any sort of discussion about that, I'll get taken out by someone. I'm sure Serkis first said with a laugh. He then added, yes, I think there probably might be some little bit of a crossover. Yeah, for sure. I can't tell you anymore. Comics fans know Alfred has a history as a spy, recently shown in live action form with the epic series Pennyworth. With so much going on in the Batman, it seems unlikely that Alfred's past will get much attention in the film. However, fans can perhaps expect some knowing winks about what the butler got up to before he joined up with the Waynes. Additionally, there could always be room to explore Alfred's SAS past in a future project. It's already been confirmed that Batman will usher in a new Gotham universe and that's already led to an HBO Max spin-off series focused on the Gotham City Police Department. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future to explore this fascinating part of Alfred's life. While Serkis didn't explicitly confirm his Alfred in the Batman is ex-SAS, it seems likely he'll have those ties. This could enhance his relationship with Bruce in a meaningful way, as Alfred uses his experience to aid Bruce in this pivotal time. This is just another reason for fans to look forward to the Batman, which is shaping up to be a compelling look into the Caped Crusader mythos, as well as those around him. Yes, really pumped for this movie. But as I say, I'm looking forward. Look, when a guy like this is playing Alfred, you get excited. And we know that Matt Reeves and he were obviously it worked together before as well. So it's a great little partnership they have there. And I'm very interested to see what this guy, this hugely talented British actor, well-trained Shakespearean actor, of course, is going to bring to Alfred. Because I think this may be the best Alfred we've had so far. I haven't seen him yet, but I think this guy's special and he can really bring something special to the role. Oh boy, this is over an hour video. And I haven't tried to upload it yet. Let's hope it uploads. If you've seen it, it's uploaded. Otherwise, they said it's too long. Let's wait and see. Anyway, the DCEU is repeating the MCU's Spider-Man problem. The DCEU's upcoming The Flash movie is at the risk of repeating an ongoing issue that has been part of the MCEU's ongoing Spider-Man franchise. The DCEU's The Flash movie is at risk of repeating a large issue that has been going on with the MCU's Spider-Man franchise. One of the upcoming DC films is Ezra Miller's solo movie featuring his version of the Scarlet Speedster. While Grant Gustin is portraying Barry Allen in the Arrowverse, the DCEU will soon kick off another The Flash franchise that has been in the works since 2014. The movie will be drawing inspiration from the DC storyline Flashpoint that involves time travel after Barry goes back to the past to save his mother from being murdered. As a result, Barry comes back to a new present that has been rewritten because he changed the timeline. While the original comic art was mostly about time travel, the DCU iteration will also include the DC multiverse concept. The Flash will not only be Barry's opportunity to get the spotlight on the big screen, but it will feature a number of DC characters, new and old ones. Sasha Calle has just recently been cast as the DCEU's iteration of Supergirl that will debut in Miller's film. However, the Girl of Steel will also be joined by not one but two versions of Bruce Wayne's Batman. Both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are set to portray their respective take on The Dark Knight, with the latter being involved because of Barry's rewrite of reality. While it's expected that the other DC characters will be added, Batman's role is what's slightly concerning, since it parallels an issue that the MCU has with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Ever since Holland was cast as Marvel's iconic web-slinger, his character arc has been incredibly dependent on his relationship with Iron Man. Rather than being mostly independent as he is in the comics, Peter's entire Spider-Man saga has in more ways than one tied into Iron Man. Peter was basically the son Tony never had, and a long-time Avenger became a father figure for the teen Avenger. Holland's past Spider-Man films have been influenced by Iron Man's presence, both physically and spiritually. The Flash is similarly now relying a bit on Batman with two separate incarnations of the Caped Crusader. This is Barry's first movie with such a big arc coming up for him with Flashpoint. The focus needs to be solely on him. The focus is on him, but ultimately these experienced these two versions of Batman, this experienced crime fighter, is there to kind of inspire Barry. So it's not the same issue as the Batman thing, because basically in Spider-Man, every villain is out to get Tony Stark rather than having a personal feud with Spider-Man. It's dumb. This is not what's happening with the Flashpoint movie. So sorry, Andy, you're wrong. The Flashpoint idea is certainly a strong opening for a Flash story. But in the end, it has to be Barry that shines through, which it will be. Having two Batmen that in some ways help him become the same problem that Spider-Man Homecoming had with Tony's inclusion. The Vulture was even a result of Tony's actions through Damage Control that drove Adrian Toomes to villainy Spider-Man. Far From Home, despite Iron Man being dead, had Mysterio as a supervillain because of Tony's past actions. Keaton's Batman coming back for the Flash makes sense because of Flashpoint involving the multiverse. However, there are still two Batman in this story, and it comes off as this story trying to service other characters more than Barry. No. Listen to me, right? This is an opportunity for the DCEU to have a bit of a crossover, yes, which is exciting, but this is still Barry's story, and he's not going to be flashed by all these other DC characters. It's going to make his arc even bigger. They're there to serve as a kind of warning, I suppose. The Flash is not a vehicle to be used for Michael Keaton or Affleck's Batman to somehow get a wrap-up to their respective stories. Neither should they be intended to somehow have to help Barry or make him look beneath them. Batman has already had many opportunities on screen, and the last thing any version should do in the Flash is overshadow Barry as the story's protagonist. Although Andy, and I know how Andy swings with these kind of things, would be very happy if a Batwoman or Batgirl were cameoing in this movie. Have you noticed he hasn't got an issue with Supergirl in this movie? No, I love Supergirl. I'm a big Supergirl fan. Glad she's in the movie, right? But, you know, this is the problem. He doesn't really like Batman that much, Andy. He prefers the female versions of the Bat family. So there is an agenda here. So you must understand when journalists have a deeper agenda. As cool as it looks on the screen, seeing Batman be the one to give Barry his new suit on paper, it already takes away something from the hero's own development. Crossovers are always a fun storytelling device, but for the Flash's case, it's not worth it if it repeats MCU's Spider-Man problem. First of all, Andy, you haven't seen the movie, and you've clearly got an issue with Batman because he's a man. I don't know why. That's down to you and yourself to deal with before you go to bed at night. But I'm very excited that Keaton and Affleck are going to be in this movie. Rumours of Nicolas Cage's Superman as well. This film is going to be off the fucking scale. And if you're a DC fan and you're not excited about it, I can't help you. And you'll be happy to hear it's the final article today. And this is a suggestion from Scott Edwards. At Movies TV Mad, please do a video over the article and give your thoughts on the future of Supergirl. Why it's too late to give Supergirl a satisfying Arrowverse ending. So let's click on that and let's give it a look. Why it's too late to give Supergirl a satisfying Arrowverse ending by Donna Cromians. Right, let's have a look. The Arrowverse's journey of the Girl of Steel will be coming to an end as Supergirl airs its 6th and final season on the CW this year, which is not enough time to adequately conclude the story. Hang on. What's your name again? Let's get it right. Donna. This Donna, you're talking nonsense, right? Sorry, Donna, you're talking nonsense. Shall I tell you why you're talking nonsense? It's a season of 20 fucking episodes. If a season of 20 fucking episodes can't send someone off and give them a good ending, then they should all be booted out of the industry and mocked and pillared while they walk the streets bare fucking footed, right? The Arrowverse journey of the Girl of Steel will be coming to an end as Supergirl airs its 6th and final season on the CW this year, which is not enough time to adequately conclude her story. Her final adventures will kick off with a short-term run, starting on Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021, taking Superman and Lois time slot for 6 weeks, while the latter is on a COVID-19 forced hiatus. She will then return during summer to wrap up her story later this year. The Arrowverse has had 4 of Supergirl's 5 seasons to set up and cohesively tell her story. However, missteps along the way are why the 20 episodes of the final season may not be enough time to correct those mistakes, making it too late to give Supergirl a satisfying send-off. What? Excuse me. Supergirl Season 1 focused on Kara Danvers becoming the Girl of Steel. Subsequently, seasons after the show moved from CBS to the CW. I'm losing my voice. I've been talking for too long. Sorry. Offered some limited growth for the characters, even as it's occasionally forgot whose story the show was telling. Supergirl sets itself apart from the Arrowverse shows in both positive ways, the Danvers sisters' bond and teamwork, and negative losing sight of its lead. I don't think the Danvers sisters thing is a positive thing because I've never been convinced by their relationship. It's just so forced in there. Supergirl's differences from the rest of the Arrowverses mandate a distinctive conclusion. Arrow ended with Oliver Queen's death. It is entirely possible that when The Flash comes to an end, it may do so with another noble hero's death, or simply have Barry Allen walking away from his speed and powers. Let's hope not. The difference between those Arrowverse stories and what would be a satisfying ending for Supergirl again may lay in the storytelling. Oliver and Barry both were allowed to grow both as superheroes and as people, ending up both married to their true loves, pursuing an array of careers and personal missions. and achieved, at least for a while, relatively stable lives. Supergirl has not set its lead arc on similar trajectory. Then again, should Supergirl have an Arrowverse conclusion? The truth may be that unlike Barry and Oliver, her story is not coming to an end. It's just the beginning. In her 5 seasons on the air, Supergirl as a character has been given minimal development, while she has had plenty of action and inspirational speeches, solidifying her commitment to hope and help and compassion for all. Just how much has she really grown? The show waited until the 100th episode for her to realise that she doesn't have to sacrifice herself and her feelings to be a caretaker of everyone else's needs and perceptions. By the way, that is the most pathetic, childish thing you can actually do to a character. I don't need to be alone. I can have a boyfriend, I can have friends, and I can be Supergirl at the same time. It just makes things more complicated. Kara, characters shouldn't have their cake and eat it. Anyway, that's my opinion. But I'm an adult after all, and I've lived in the real world. It took until season 5, episode 13, it's a super life for her to hear and understand what Mon-El told her, that she had value too and deserved the same compassion she showed others, which is so stupid. Again, it's so stupid, right? Of course she deserves compassion, but it doesn't mean she deserves family and friends and everything that everybody else has, because she's a hero. You either want to be a hero or you want to be in the happy clappy club, right? It was a major turning point in Supergirl's growth when she later confronted Lena and told her that she was through taking the blame for things that Lena was responsible for her own actions from that point on. Aside from when she tearfully sent Mon-El away, it was perhaps one of Supergirl's most adult moments. And if Supergirl had limited growth in 5 seasons, her alter ego Kara Danvers' growth has been nearly non-existent. Other than her connection to her sister Alex, they haven't really known what to do with Kara besides her being Supergirl. I know, it sucks, doesn't it? Because Supergirl is why we're watching the TV show for. Anyway, where are we? Growth has been nearly, other than her connection to her sister Alex, they haven't really known what to do with Kara besides her being Supergirl. It would be hard for the writers to give her a story satisfying final character because her emotional development has been spread very thin. She's a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, yet she's rarely seen reporting. She's supposed to be a friend and mentor to Nia now, yet truly little has been shown of her taking Nia under her wing and advising her. From the show's first season, the case could be made that Supergirl was being portrayed as a female Superman. Here you go. You see, I knew she had a feminist agenda here, and this is the issue with these people. Anyway, and telling his canon stories instead of her own, many of her foes and dilemmas were snatched from Superman scenarios. Her first major test with Reactron in season 1 had major ties to Superman. She rightly bristled and Jimmy calling in Superman to help her instead of letting her be a hero on her own. You see, this was the problem in season 1. It was, we hate Superman show. Oh, Superman's trying to save me. Oh, Superman's coming in. Listen, I hate to tell you this, but people want to see Superman in a Supergirl story because Superman started the whole thing off and people are pretty much there because of Superman. And it doesn't matter if he cameos and helps Kara, but we live in insane times, don't we? From fending off an alien invasion of Earth, battling the Luthors, to a revision of the iconic story for the man who has everything. Although Supergirl did a better job with this story with their critically acclaimed episode, there simply has not been enough mining of stories from Supergirl's rich DC canon. Supergirl writers basically recreated the Lex Clark-Smallville dynamic just because they couldn't get away from the Krypton versus Luthor dynamic, which resulted in an overly long and very predictable arc for Lena. Well, they may have nicked the Lex and Clark storytelling from Smallville, but they didn't adapt it very well. They did a piss-poor job because that is a great way of doing it. And in Smallville, it was compelling and emotional, and it really hit hard. But nothing Supergirl has ever done has ever hit hard. So I actually applaud them for trying to do that. They just didn't do it very well because they're not interested. It became such that audiences were relieved when Lena finally turned on Kara. Yes, definitely. But, again, that's because Lena was better off being a villain, right? Rather than this smiley, happy person. When Lex and Clark were having their dynamic, we didn't have Lex going, "Oh, I'm really good and my dad's really bad, yeah. Oh, I love you, Clark." No, it was proper and it was deep and we had depth. That's what I'm saying. So again, when Supergirl finally told Lena she was responsible for her own actions, it was a powerful self-affirming moment for the girl of Steel. It wasn't. Very boring. Again, in trying to adhere to the Kryptonian versus Luthor dynamic, Supergirl ended up doing more harm than good to the titular character. Instead of making Supergirl proactive in thwarting all of the Luthor's nefarious plans, they made her step back and react to Lena, Lillian, and eventually Lex Luthor were placed in the spotlight, giving more space and layers than the show's title character. Should I tell you why, miss? Because the writers failed Supergirl and Kara. You're absolutely correct. And when Lex Luthor turned up, a man, because we know the people who make this show, and probably your good self, hate men as well. When a man turned up, right, an iconic villain played by a really good actor, the show turned around on its head, and it was exciting and engrossing to watch, because these writers did well writing for this Lex, but couldn't be bothered to write for Supergirl, even though they reckon they represent women. They're all talk and no action. Granted, Lex Luthor is a larger-than-life character, but he should not outshine the show's lead. But why did he outshine the show's lead? Because they're feminists and they believe in certain things, they didn't bother giving this character any good characterizations. And here lies the problem. Supergirl spent far too much time on the Luthors and their schemes. Even the comic Supergirl stories the show attempted to adapt, Reign and Red Daughter, became less about Supergirl and more about the Luthors, instead of being an exploration of Krypton's dark history and how it affected Supergirl. That's a good point. Reign's story was a key chapter in Lena Luthor's slow descent to the dark side. Red Daughter could have been a great study on nature versus nurture by having Red Daughter interact more with Supergirl, Kara Danvers and her Alex, which might have led to a possible redemption. No, this is the problem. I kind of agree with you, but the redemption thing's boring. I don't want to see all bad characters being redeemed, and you people do. You don't want females being kind of perceived as villains. This is the problem. How can you have a great villain story? How can you have great characterizations with a female villain or any female character when whatever these people write and do, no, you're portraying a woman negatively, because some women are negative like men are. And this is this insanity. And this is why women are not being represented in the correct way, and why there's such a discourse between movie consumers and TV show consumers, because we've had enough of the insanity, which might have led to a possible redemption instead. The focus of Red Daughter's storyline was Lex's megalomania and manipulative psychotic personality. The show even fumbled with the Lex Clark-Smallville dynamic by telling the story of Lena and Supergirl's break in their friendship almost totally from Lena's perspective for the majority of Season 5, where there was an opportunity to examine Supergirl's inner conflict. The show chose to focus on Lena, submerged in a villainous pool of her own hurt feelings and ego, robbing the latter character of any hope of a less predictable storyline that subverted expectations. They love subverting expectations. They love The Last Jedi, even though it was one of, well, the most boring Star Wars film of all time. But this is what these people want. When you listen to these journalists, creatives and artists, you fuck up. You lose money and you don't create something special. By continuing to push Supergirl and Kara's further into the background, the show has frozen her in stasis. The show fell into a pattern of more often portraying Kara as a good-hearted child rather than a grown woman. You see, this is the problem. Grown, a child and a woman, and these people's perception of what a woman should be is very twisted, because, as we know, like men, women are not all the same. Each woman is different and is individually unique. But to these crazy alt-leftists and feminists, all women should be clones, high-fiving another woman, hating on men. This is where we are now in the world, and this is why we don't have good entertainment being made, because Hollywood is listening to these nut jobs, because these nut jobs are running Hollywood. Anyway, they kept her very pristine, bubbly, good, and never truly let her face any type of inner darkness or give in to her emotions, except in rare single episodes, like Seasons 1's Falling, which found her under the influence of Red K. As previously mentioned, Kara had a moment of grief at the beginning of Season 3 after she sent the love of her life, Mon-El, away. But then it wasn't until midway into Season 5 that her character was given additional emotional depth. Both Alex and Mon-El tried to take her out of her ennui, but it took a hard look at her life, courtesy of Mr. Pixelic, for her to take charge of her life and start a new chapter by putting her foot down about being manipulated emotionally in other ways by Lena. for most of the show's nearly 100 episodes for Supergirl to take the driver's seat of her personal well-being. The most logical way for Supergirl's Arrowverse arc to conclude will be contrary to the hero's end the Arrowverse gave Oliver Queen. There isn't time to sufficiently develop Supergirl and Kara's story. Well, of course there is. 20 episodes is plenty of time. In a way that could lead to sufficient ending. The Arrowverse will need to leave her conclusion open-ended by sending her off in a matter that can be revisited by other shows down the line. With Supergirl ending, it makes sense that Kara can't be on Earth in this timeline. So the most logical direction for Supergirl in the Arrowverse is a path the show has already set up for her. What would be more fitting than a reunion with Mona? Oh, yeah. Fitting for you, not for anyone who enjoys good writing and Win in the future, where a place awaits for her in the Legion of Superheroes. While it may be too late for Supergirl to give its heroine a traditional ending that ties up loose ends and meaningfully caps years of careful character development, Supergirl has never been a typical superhero show. Kara Danvers needs an ending all of her own, one that isn't a retelling of someone else's story. As Kara Danvers' story comes to an end, Supergirl's should continue, and Kara Zor-El's new life should be just the beginning. An ending of a story doesn't need to tie up loose ends. I know you people who watch stuff and you in the media and some fans, when everything's tied up in a neat bow, that's the most boring thing ever. Life on Mars and Lost were two of the best stories ever told on TV because they didn't wrap up everything, and we were all talking about the possibilities. They gave us one possibility, but we don't have that imagination in the industry or in written media now or by some fans. And that's the very sad thing about it. Basically, they did Supergirl rotten from the very, very beginning. They were so mixed up between their feminist and alt-left agenda and making her, a social justice warrior. They forgot one thing about the character. They forgot about Kara Danvers. And they didn't listen, she talks about Smallville in that article, the TV show. One thing you can credit Smallville about, and I'm sorry to Riot Unlimited that you hated Smallville, you're wrong about that. So the TV show Smallville had great characters with great character dynamics. The character dynamics in Smallville were as amazing as the superhero action. This is why this show was able to last for a decade with an interesting fan base and kept on doing well. Even if in its 9th season, it was breaking Friday night TV ratings for the CW. It was sensational because they had great characters, great dynamics. They really focused on telling a great story. Supergirl just said, I'm a woman, here I am, I'm strong, hear me roar, and listen to us put down Superman a few times too. That's not good storytelling. That's not good kind of representation of a female. And while you've got these insane people running Hollywood, the same thing will happen again and again. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. I will be back tomorrow with more DCEU Daily. 3 days to Zack Snyder's Justice League. Snyder Cut. See you again soon.